Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to the Animenpodcast, episode 8, the show where we talk about all things anime like men. My name is Crazed, and with me as always is the man with the moving castle, Raven Rook. How you doing today?
Good. How are you doing?
Did you like that? Did you like that title?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, they get better every time.
I'm trying to get creative. I thought of that one last night. And I'm like, I had to write it in the drive, but I've been okay. It's just been one of those past couple weeks for us. Both, because you have a lot to say too.
Yeah.
So how about we start with you, and then we can go back to me, because I actually have a lot to say, but you have a lot to say too. But I'll let you go first, because you had it rough. We had a lot more rougher than me.
Yeah, so I ended up getting sick with COVID again. So that was fun. Third time's
the charm, right?
That's what they say. I feel like I should have a punch card at this point. They're like, all right, you get a free... I don't know what the free thing would be.
You get a free tote bag. This is like...
right. You just get to carry it around. Yeah.
Or one of those stickers that says, I voted. But like, I contracted or something.
It should just be like, I get knocked down, but I get up again.
I like that.
COVID.
I'll have to make a sticker, and it'll probably just pop up on the video form of this podcast.
That would be so cute.
When we have merch, that will be the first thing that I make is stickers, and that will be the first sticker. Anything else though other than COVID? I mean, you and your wife got it.
Yeah. So that was fun and interesting, and the timing couldn't have been better because we are going to Ireland for like a week. We're going to go to Dublin, and then we're going to go to Galway, and it's going to be awesome. We're going to have a late night flight. We get in at 5 a.m. Ireland time on Friday morning, and we're basically just dropping our shit off at the hotel, and then we're going straight to the Jameson factory, and we're going to drink whiskey. God damn it.
Oh, my wife's going to be so jealous when I tell her that. She loves whiskey. She's like a sucker. I just got Screwballs, which is like peanut butter whiskey.
Yes.
She loves
so
that.
Good.
It was a $30 bottle. I bought it for Mother's Day for her because she has 2 beautiful pugs. So I consider her a mother in my eyes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm so jealous you get to go to Ireland. Is this for like honeymoon reasons, or is it just cuz?
Yeah, it's more just like a vacation, just for fun. We actually did a very scaled down honeymoon in Arizona. Cheaper. It was easier you couldn't really do a whole lot of international travel because of COVID still. So we kind of just did that and then put an international plan kind of on the back burner until now things have opened up. So that's kind of how that worked out. But yeah, super excited about Ireland.
I never got to do a honeymoon. I keep forgetting we both got married around the same time, especially during COVID. Yeah. And when COVID hit the first time, not the third time for you, but
right.
But yeah, like I got married during COVID around the same time, and we never did the honeymoon. We didn't even do a like actual reception. We just went to the courthouse, just got the paper, and we're married the next, one day.
Oh, damn.
As weird as that sounds, but my plan is to try to do something between our 5-year, by our 5th year anniversary. And I'm coming on 2, so I have 3 more years to plan something. And I've always wanted to do the Netherlands or New Zealand.
Yes.
Just because my wife loves the Lord of the Rings, and New Zealand has like the Hobbiton like town where you could literally go and do a tour of the Hobbiton town, I guess, or Hobbit town, or the Shire, as you would call it. And apparently they have like a bar there, and I think even a bed and breakfast of some sort, maybe, but like that, I don't know how. I've always wanted to do that, but like I know how expensive that's going to be, and I don't even have a passport, and my wife's never flown, so it's like,
oh wow,
yeah, she's always stayed in Colorado. She's never been out and about. So my second plan though is like maybe we go to Salem, Massachusetts, because she loves like the witch trials and stuff, and she loves graveyards and walking graveyards. She religiously watches Hollywood Graveyard on YouTube, and they go to famous graves of like famous people that have died, and they talk about them. It's actually a really cool, channel. If you ever want to watch that, we could leave it in the link down below. But yeah, really, really cool. So, but yeah, that's something that's like our backup option for a honeymoon at some point. But I'm jealous you get to go to Ireland, and I cannot wait to hear the whole trip. But for me, I got a lot. I'll start off with hail season. It started with me at work because I work at a auto body, shop, and hail just started, coming down last week, and it's just been a nightmare. And it's just been a rough couple weeks just with the hail and just dealing with hail season. But hey, it makes us busy and job security, I guess, right?
Right.
I have something huge, and it's kind of just sprung on me because this is something I've always wanted to do. But and by the time you're hearing this, it's probably already gonna be done. So I'm sorry. I wish I prepared for this sooner, because I really want to get more eyes on this. But I'm doing a charity stream, or as I dub, charity scream, for the El Paso Pug Rescue. And I haven't done a stream in quite a while, but I've always wanted to do a charity one in the 4 years I've done YouTube. And I'm doing it with a bunch of other content creators right now. And we're going to be playing Demonologist, which is the new scary Phasmophobia game that's out right now. And every time I scream, I'm going to be donating $1. So, wow. And me with scary games, I scream. So, I'm going to probably burn a hole in my pocket, but it's for a good cause. And we decided to do the pug rescue in El Paso, Colorado. It's just something I've always wanted to do because we've rescued both our pugs, and just something I want to give back, So it sucks that I'm saying this like probably 2 days before our stream starts. So wish I could give a little bit more leeway on people watching, but as when you guys hear this, it will already be done, and I'm sure it went off without a hitch. Our goal is $400.
Oh, nice.
Fingers crossed. So other than those two crazy things that I got going on right now, I've been playing Zelda, the new Zelda game, for the past week now, and it's been amazing. I bought a new Switch. I don't know if you saw my unboxing, but I bought a new Switch.
Oh, I did. Yes.
I don't want to go into Zelda talk because I could for the entirety of this episode, but it's so fun. I don't know. I never even asked if you're a Zelda fan. Hit
or miss. I haven't played all of them, certainly. I didn't grow up with Nintendo. I sort of was welcomed into the fold later on in my youth. But Wind Waker is my absolute favorite. I actually really like Twilight. Yeah, and I love Twilight Princess. I've been playing Breath of the Wild, and I was pretty addicted to it for a while. But I'm kind of waiting on Tears of the Kingdom until I actually finish Breath of the Wild.
Fair enough.
Which is so hard.
Yeah. It's where are you at, by the way, Inet?
So I'm pretty much almost done with the main quest line. I've just been collecting all of the super cool shit that you don't necessarily need to finish the game. I always get to that point in a big JRPG or something similar where I'm almost to the end and I'm just but I really want all the cool shit. And then I realize it doesn't, the game is going to end. And as sad as that is, it's I'm just prolonging the inevitable, but I can't help it. I can't help myself.
I understand. It's that thing with me too, where I want to try to grab everything except the Kurok seeds. Those.
Oh no! Fuck that
shit. Those, you just get I think you get poop at the end after you collect 900 of them. I'm are you serious? Spoiler alert, by the way, and I don't really care. You get poop. All right, you get a golden poop. Are you happy with yourself?
I mean, now I might have to go and just collect all of them because that sounds great.
If anything, I was trying to save you time. I'm sorry. I incentivized you instead. Damn it. Okay. By the way, I have to say, not a lot of people love Wind Waker, but I love Wind Waker. I actually, at the time of this recording, I actually just got the amiibos that came in for Wind Waker.
Oh, nice.
They're doing reprints on all the amiibos. So
yeah, I heard that.
I got Tears of the Kingdom. I got Twilight Princesses. I'll show you pictures, and I'll probably put pictures up in here, but I'll send them to you later. But yeah, I think my last bit of them just came in, which is the Wind Waker one. It's the 2-pack with Toon Link and Toon Zelda, or just Zelda in the game. So I'm hoping one day they'll do a freaking Switch port, because I have been dying to play Wind Waker on our channel.
Oh yeah.
But I'm so glad you're a Wind Waker fan. Like, that's my number one. That's how I got introduced to Zelda. And then of course Twilight Princess I loved. I never owned a Wii, so I never played Skyward Sword until when they brought it over to Switch. But enough game talk. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I could talk about Zelda the whole episode, and we might one day, but that is not today. We're talking about our topic, and what is that?
Our topic today, it's one hell of a topic. It is Studio Ghibli. It's not an overstatement to say that Hayao Miyazaki is a veritable lodestar of the anime world, a master artist, animator, director, storyteller, just all around fucking brilliant human being. It should go without saying that we have to do this topic justice, and we absolutely have to get it right. And to help us do that, we've decided to divide up this episode into 2 sections. The first portion will be similar to a lot of our other episodes. We're both bringing to the table a couple of our favorite Ghibli films to discuss. What do we like about them? Why should you watch them? After that, we're going to pivot to a broader discussion about Studio Ghibli's place in the anime canon and the influence they've had and continue to have both on the anime community and on anime itself. So, without further ado, let's get into it. But before we do, fun fact. So the katakana spelling of Studio Ghibli reads Studio Ghibli. As some of our listeners may know, I am learning Japanese, which is super fun. I looked this up originally because I wanted to make sure I was pronouncing Ghibli right. A couple of my friends listened to our last podcast where we introduced this topic, and they were like, way to go, idiot. It's Ghibli. But it turns out I was right. As we can see from the katakana spelling, it is Ghibli. Sounded out, it's actually Ghibli, but suffice it to say, I'm right. But as I was dead set on dying on this hill, I noticed the interesting spelling for studio, which sounds out to Sutagio. Many katakana spellings attempt to closely resemble the original pronunciations of the loan words they represent, which makes this example a little confusing. And just for context, a loan word is basically just a non-Japanese word, so brought over from English a lot of the time, or a European language, and just kind of sounded out with katakana characters. This interesting transposition of studio could be a limitation in the commonly accepted katakana characters at the time the word first came into use. As more and more loan words became commonplace in everyday spoken and written Japanese, the rules of katakana morphed to approximate sound syllables found in other languages, and this is known as extended katakana. Had studio made its way into Japanese vernacular in the 21st century, we probably would have landed on a different spelling given the ever-evolving nature of language. And with that out of the way, let's get to the meat and potatoes of this episode.
At least you learned something at the end of this,
Right, every day is a school day.
Right, so I've been saying it wrong my whole life. Just like, I swear to God, I thought Luigi from the Mario, franchise, I always spelled it Luigi when I was a kid, and no one corrected me until I was older, and I felt so embarrassed the whole time I was saying Luigi. But yeah, I'm glad you got that out of the way. I might continue to say it as Ghibli, so I apologize.
That's totally fine. Totally fine.
You're justified. I love that, like, when you sound it out, it kind of sounds like Djibouti.
I know, right? It's kind of fun.
Sorry, I'm a kid at heart first, and before I'm an adult. So there you go. But anyway, yes, you're right. Let's get on to the meat and potatoes of this episode. Let's pick out. We chose 2 each, and
yeah,
I gotta say, I did sit down to rewatch your picks because they are not as fresh in my mind as the ones I chose, and I think you did vice versa, right?
Oh yeah.
And I'm glad, because you have never seen the ones I chose. So I was like,
yeah.
Oh my God, you're going to have especially when you were sick, I was like, oh man, you're just going to enjoy being sick.
I did. I watched so much anime when I was sick.
So how about we start with you first on your first
Okay.
pick, and then we'll go to mine, and then, back and forth until we reach the end. So your first pick, sir?
Well, my first pick is The Wind Rises from 2013. And Of course, I was going to pick this one. The movie title is an allusion to a very beautiful poem by French poet Paul Valéry. The poem is The Graveyard by the Sea, and the full line is, "The wind is rising, we must try to live," which you will hear several times in the movie. But the poem works for this film on so many levels. It's about choosing life in the face of impending death. On a more literal level, though, wind is a powerful, destructive force, but it also creates lift, which is integral to the act of flight. The evocation of this poem is so apt. The movie takes place during World War II, one of the biggest metaphorical storms to decimate Europe and Asia, the effects of which we can still witness to this day. And in the face of the overwhelming body count and carnage, we have this poignantly exuberant line that impels us to yet choose life, a theme we will encounter over and over again in some really compelling ways. The Graveyard by the Sea also happens to be one of Paul Valéry's last poems of consequence, written toward the end of his life as a contemplation of how his work as a poet measures up against the overwhelming truth of mortality. I can't help but see the striking parallel to The Wind Rises, the last full-length movie Miyazaki directed. I'm sure it's no accident that he chose this poem as a frame for it, because when this film came out, he announced that it would be his last. And I would argue that this is possibly the most personal of Miyazaki's films, and we get such a touching view of the artist himself through the characters as he contemplates, in similar fashion to Valéry, the substantial library of masterpieces his hands have created that have inspired countless fans all over the world. Just as air travel made us all more connected, so too have Miyazaki's films. And the movie itself portrays a fictionalized version of Jiro Horikoshi, an aeronautical engineer who designed fighter planes for World War II. And those planes were used to commit acts of death and destruction. It is clear from his personal diary that the real Horikoshi was very much opposed to the war. One excerpt says the following, quote, "When we awoke on the morning of December 8th, 1941, we found ourselves, without any foreknowledge, to be embroiled in war. Since then, the majority of us who had truly understood the awesome industrial strength of the United States never really believed that Japan would win this war. We were convinced that surely our government had in mind some diplomatic measures which would bring the conflict to a halt before the situation became catastrophic for Japan. But now, bereft of any strong government move to seek a diplomatic way out, we are being driven to doom. Japan is being destroyed. I cannot do anything other but to blame the military hierarchy and the blind politicians in power for dragging Japan into this hellish cauldron of defeat." End quote. And that is pulled from the book Zero, the story of Japan's air war in the Pacific. Horikoshi being one of the authors of that book. But we see that this is the Jiro Horikoshi Miyazaki portrays in his film. He is a young, brilliant man enamored with the idea of flight and with aircrafts themselves, but opposed to the war. And I've got to believe that, though the film definitely gives a romanticized portrayal, it must be at least somewhat accurate. He didn't want to see his designs used for such violent, horrifying purposes. I've got to believe in that because flight enthusiasts all over the world to this day still recognize Jiro Horikoshi as a great aircraft designer and even sent him letters later in his life. And though the film focuses on Jiro's career and the historical landscape of World War II, a big focus is on the romance between the fictionalized Jiro and Naoko Satomi. And OMG, this relationship is fucking goals! I'm not going to spoil anything here, but just be ready to cry your eyes out. And true to form, this film is a beauty to behold. The dream sequence between Jiro and Caproni, the latter being an Italian aircraft designer whom Jiro idolizes, are so picturesque, but they can also be intense and scary when imagery of war encroaches on Jiro's boyish fantasies. True to Miyazaki's MO surrounding his symbolic use of wind, you can't have one without the other, and he is relentless about this fact. But the most compelling use of wind would definitely be its use to hearken our attention back to Naoko, even when Jiro and her are worlds apart, and it's such a poignant device that persistently draws us back to the beauty of life amidst the shocking horror of war. One of the best wind-related lines in the entire film is when Naoko tells Jiro, "I've loved you since the day the wind brought you to me." I love this film. I cry every time, but knowing now that Miyazaki planned this to be his last film adds a whole new dimension, and I think it holds up as a fitting tribute to his brilliant career.
When I found out, because I watched this week just to prepare for this film, and I've never seen this film. And then going into some of the facts and stuff that this is his final film, I went into it with just this emotional weight on me that this is the last thing I'll probably ever see of him. And this was in 2013. I was like, holy crap, how did I not see this sooner or hear about this sooner? And man, yeah, and I love the quotes, like the line at the very beginning with the wind, you know? Wind is such an important thing in this movie. And it's like you said, I feel like this is something he's always wanted to make. It feels very personal to him. This film shows an important part of Japanese history that I've never even seen.
Yeah.
Even in school, I never heard about this stuff. Obviously, I've heard about the war, but I never heard about how rough, you know, Japan had it, you know, apart from them trying to catch up. They were, you know, 10 or 20 years behind everyone else in the aerodynamic technology. And then also seeing the Kanto earthquake of 1923 was and seeing Japan in ruins. Like, I had to look up more photos afterward. Actually, halfway through the film, I paused it when we got to that part, you know, seeing the disaster. Because I was like, is this real? This happened? And I had to look, and seeing the pictures, like the real life pictures of this, of like what actually happened, is insane. And they did a good job portraying it. And I've never seen anything like this on, like, showing that side of human history, especially with Japanese history. Like, it's crazy. And it's so weird for Studio Ghibli to do something so grounded and yet and personal. Like, it feels very personal to Miyazaki, and for it to be his final film, I think it's perfect, because it does feel like something he's always wanted to do and explain and show to his audience, because I feel like we've trusted him enough to get to that point in his career. I did cry at the end of this, just seeing Jiro's contraption, like everything that he's made in a graveyard. I'm sorry, I mean that's at the very end of the film, and I know it's a little spoily, but seeing that scene had me in tears, just being like, wow. Yeah, man, I was left in awe. I was like, I'm so glad I saw this film this week, and I'm so glad he chose this one. It feels almost fitting that the last film he's ever made is the one we first talk about too. Even though he's made so many great ones, he like went out with a bang. Like, this feels like his magnum opus.
It really does.
Yeah. I don't know what else I could say other than just gush more about it. Just like, like I was trying to see like when they were going to get to like the supernatural stuff. I guess that's always what he does, you know, like show like some fantasy of some kind, you know, like you had that in Spirit Away and other films. Right. So like where is that? And then it's in the dream sequences that I finally understood. I was like, oh, this is where that is. Because it was so grounded at first, but then going back and forth, and they never really tell you when they're doing it. But like when you start seeing it, like you can kind of tell when he's in the open landscape, and obviously when Caproni shows up finally, that's kind of when you know, oh, he's having a dream. And I do love seeing Jiro's mindscape of how he thinks about creating these planes. Like him just fascinated by a fishbone at the beginning of the film. And just like, oh, look at the angle of that. Like, that's so cool. Like, I just found it so fascinating. And then seeing in his head, like, how the plane would work as he's just at his desk working, like how it all works in his head and how it would blow up, you know, if he did the wrong thing. I mean, like, it was so interesting to see his thought process on the whole thing. And like, I can see why, you know, he's renowned as one of those, you know, flight geniuses. So sorry, I keep gushing because it's more fresh in my mind, because this movie is amazing and I wish I've seen it sooner. I'm beating myself up that it took me almost 10 years to see this thing.
Yeah, I mean, I can't blame you for gushing. It's probably my favorite, but it is, it's phenomenal. It's genius. Just like everything else he does, it's genius.
And it holds up even 10 years later. Like, and I'll go into that later, but like everything that Studio Ghibli makes, and I'll probably be repeating myself, mostly through this podcast, but it just ages so well.
Oh yeah.
Your next pick, I was like, this ages so well too. Like, but we'll get to your second pick, but let's do mine before I keep talking more. But that was Wind Rises, and I did forget to mention all of these movies are on HBO Max.
Right.
That's at least how I watched all of these films, or at least how I'm choosing them. I mean, obviously you can get these on Blu-ray, I'm sure, but like the best way to watch these right now is HBO Max because they have some kind of contract with Studio Ghibli, sorry. All their films are on there. So it's so amazing just to watch all that stuff on there. So yeah. HBO Max, check it out. The Wind Rises. My next, I guess my first pick, and I do want to say, funny enough, both of my picks are from book adaptations that Studio Ghibli has adapted, so I just thought that was interesting because they're some of my favorite. Not because they're from, originally, from books. They're so good.
Yeah.
And they did a good job at adapting them. So my first pick is When Marnie Was There, which was originally a book of the same name by Joan G. Robinson, and it tells a tale of a very introverted girl whose name is Anna, who has a tough time making friends. She had a very rough childhood and starts staying over with some family friends for one summer. She starts to become entranced by this old mansion that's surrounded by the city, or I guess the town, that's surrounded by the town. And she starts to find herself drawn to the mansion as she constantly walks towards it occasionally, and even starts drawing, sketches from a distance, on the cliffside. And it's when Anna finally sees the form of a young blonde girl named Marnie, through the mansion windows is where the film starts to present its beautiful mystery. I do want to say, I've never seen this film until I met my wife. She recommended to watch this, and I've never heard of it. I wasn't even interested at the time. This was I think this came out in 2013, 2014. This is such a beautiful film. It's a beautiful friendship forms in this film, and it becomes one of the most heart-wrenching stories I've ever seen in an animated film. This film is without a doubt some of Studio Ghibli their best work to date. I mean, I'm telling you, it's required viewing that everyone watches this in rotation when they decide to watch, any Ghibli movie, I think. If you're a fan of animation and just in general, I think this is imperative that we support this kind of filmmaking because this is a film for children that explores some of the deepest, darkest emotions that a kid could go through. The American entertainment industry for kids is usually just, some yellow guy screaming banana, out loud right now. And don't get me wrong, I enjoy the Despicable Me series in those films and in those spin-offs and whatnot. And I would still recommend those movies if you're looking for a fun time, even to children. But these films that Studio Ghibli has been making are so important for kids to see. I grew up with the early Studio Ghibli movies, like Spirited Away. I mean, that's the big one, obviously. But Kiki's Mansion and Howl's Moving Castle and Princess Mononoke. I mean, there's such brilliant films, and I'm glad I got to be raised up by those. I mean, it's thanks to Toonami, but I'll get to that later. One of the things I love the most about this movie, though, is that in classic Studio Ghibli fashion, it's extremely mysterious with this plot, as it has this strange otherworldly supernatural elements that run throughout the film. You're always trying to figure out the pieces of the puzzle throughout, of what the plot is trying to tell you. Not only is the animation stunningly gorgeous, but the story itself is very interesting as it presents a mystery that even I, who is a 28-year-old man, I sat with my mouth hanging open throughout the whole movie. It's so hard not to be taken in by how beautiful this film looks. From the town to the mansion to the marshes of the flood, of the high tides and stuff. So it's so hard not to be taken in by the beauty of this film, not just by the looks, but in the message that the story is trying to convey. No spoilers, of course, but the ending of this film knocked me flat on my couch and made me bawling in tears. And my wife can attest to this. It's such a beautiful movie. And again, I implore everyone that's listening to this podcast to support this type of film, because if I ever have kids, this is the stuff I want them to see, because this doesn't present the world as this shiny, glossy place, you know, filled with superheroes and yellow people screaming banana. This is a children's movie for families that both adults and kids, I think, can enjoy together. But it also presents some realities of life that kids need to know about, along with a beautiful mystery filled with suspense and character depth, with beautiful hand-drawn animations. I mean, that's Studio Ghibli always does that, so you know, you always know what you're getting, especially in the animation department. But do you have any thoughts about when Marnie was here? Because this is the first time you've watched this film recently.
Yeah, this was my very first time, and I'm not gonna lie, the setting alone gave me some serious Wuthering Heights vibes. Just to name drop another book, though I know that this is a very different story from what we get in the film. Honestly, both of your picks are films I hadn't seen before, like I said. So thank you for picking them, because I fell hard for both of them. This one especially, though, as I'm always rooting for a shy, introverted character because I see so much of myself in him or her. And Anna is no exception. Also, I love a good mystery, so this film just has everything I demand in a viewing experience. And I just, you know, like you said, it's stunning. The mystery element is just so engrossing. Just all around really great pick.
I knew you would enjoy it as soon as because that was the first thing I thought about when we did this podcast topic, because I was like, I had to talk about this film. I honestly think it's one of my it's like the number one Studio Ghibli movie in my pick. Even though Hayao Miyazaki didn't direct it, it's just nice seeing that even with him not in the forefront, though. I'm hopeful that even like movies like this can still be made without his, I guess, direction as a director would be. But
right.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that is the, do you have anything else you want to say about when Marnie was there?
No, I mean, I think you covered it. Again, just great pick.
It's so good. I'm so glad my wife showed this to me, because I was bawling by the end. I was too. Yeah, you know the story, and I'm not going to go into it. I tried to avoid spoilers the most in this one, because I want people to watch this. So yeah, that was when Marnie was there. I watched it on HBO Max. All right, time for your second and last pick.
Okay, so this is an oldie, but man, is it a goodie. Kiki's Delivery Service from 1989. And I know, I should talk about the film, but how could I not first mention the opening song, Ruju no Dengon, which this song is by Yumi Matsutoya, credited as Yumi Arai, and it is such a catchy little ditty. On top of that, it's a head scratcher of a choice for an opening song, because it's about a woman who finds out her boyfriend has been cheating on her, and she decides to leave him a message in rouge, aka lipstick, on the mirror telling him she's leaving him and leaving town. And while the whole leaving town thing fits, and Kiki's Delivery Service has a very strong, some might say at times headstrong, female protagonist, there are a few points of connection between the song and the film, but I've always found it to just be a little curious to kind of set the tone, but it bops, as the kids used to say before I was born.
That's rad.
Right? Tubular. And, perhaps I'm reading too much into that, but, that aside, this film is about a witch named Kiki, and we all should be well aware by now of how I feel about magical girls. And in this world, witches travel to towns in order to serve them for a year as part of their training. Kiki flies to Koriko and sets up a delivery service in order to make life easier for the residents. In true to form, this film uses the established rule of the world and pits it against technological advances that call into question the need for such antiquated modalities. We see this more ancient power that is tied to nature in conflict with the hubris of human ingenuity. When Kiki first arrives at Koriko, she almost gets hit by a bus and has a very humorous, reckless flying scene. After that, Gigi, her cat, familiar, and voice of reason, strongly recommends that they find a friendlier town. Given that this scene has so many modern modes of transportation that present themselves as obstacles to Kiki's flying broom, we can see modernization as an oppositional force right from this early humorous scene. In fact, it is not until Kiki meets up with Osano that we get any clear indication that this town might start to welcome her, let alone warm up to her. I mean, her first official greeting is by a police officer who wants to give her a ticket for her part in the above traffic incident. And though she has the gift of flight as a witch, she is fascinated by Tombo's flying machine and his attempts at defying human limitations. And all of these facets make for an interesting push and pull between the traditional and the modern, with Kiki as a bridge between the two. And I want to pull in a relevant quote from Miyazaki himself. Quote, "Many of my movies have strong female leads, brave, self-sufficient girls that don't think twice about fighting for what they believe with all their heart. They'll need a friend or a supporter, but never a savior." End quote. And just, it's so true here. We see this play out with Kiki losing her powers, thereby putting her one trick into jeopardy. Though this is due to her self-doubt that she eventually resolves, just as this quote suggests, it takes a village. She has the patient, compassionate support of Osano, the eerily perceptive advice of Ursula, and the unwavering faithfulness of Tombo to carry her through. Kiki learns to accept the help of the very same people she is supposed to be helping. She is ultimately the only one who can bring her own powers back, but she learns the importance of accepting help from others through her struggles. And what I love about my picks is we see wind and flight as major factors in both. We see the destructive force of wind, but also its magical ability to bring people together. Kiki loses her innate ability to fly that is so integral to who she is as a person. In a similar way, Jiro sees his dream of flying planes die before his eyes due to his impaired vision. Both protagonists draw upon their own strength, as well as the strength of others, to lift them up again. And just a quick side note, last Halloween, I dressed up as Tombo and my wife dressed up as Kiki. Aww. And it was for a Harry Potter party, and we're like, fuck you guys, we're going to be better. We're going to do you one better.
You muggles.
Yeah.
That's amazing. If you have pictures, I would love to put them on the video.
I'll have to find one, but yes, they definitely exist.
I agree about everything you say. I haven't watched this since like over a decade.
Yeah.
Like the last time I watched it was on Toonami, when they sometimes every Saturday night they would do like a movie night, and they would do Ghibli movies usually, and it'd be, and that's how I kind of watched most of these films. It's because of, I watched Princess Mononoke, Spirit Away, Kiki's Delivery Service, Howl's Moving Castle, some of the oldie ones because of Toonami, and I gotta thank Toonami for that. But I haven't seen this in over a decade, and it's like what you said. I do love dipping back into this world of Kiki. It's not hard to see why a lot of people request a sequel from this. And Ghibli usually doesn't do sequels. It's a one and done thing. And I can see why a lot of people love this world because of the way the world that's laid out for us. In the opening 10 minutes alone, like you said, she's this rift between the old ways and the tech, the human advancement of technology. I like seeing this dying concept of these witches that are just few and far between. Like her mom is like a potions master or something, or she does like alchemy of some sort at the beginning. And and Kiki's only good at flying her broom. And you hear these little things every now and again, especially when she's talking. I think it was with Gigi, where they talk about how witches used to be, in tune with, I guess ravens or crows or something in the forest. And they were they would always listen to the witches. And I just find that interesting that this dying heritage or this lineage of witches is just few and far between. You don't see them as often. And when she goes to her town, I love seeing the look on the people's faces of just in wonder, being like, oh, I've heard of witches, but I've never seen one.
Right.
I love seeing their, they look up in the sky while she's flying and be like, that's really cool. It's so interesting to see that. And then like you were saying, the advancements in human technology with the automobiles, with electricity, phone lines, zeppelins in the sky, planes, trains and whatnot. I mean, it's so interesting to see this bridge. And I gotta say, I do love the town. It kind of gives me this San Francisco Italian vibe. I also want to point out, and I've already said it before, but man, for this being 1989?
Yeah.
This movie still holds up.
Oh, yeah.
Being that old, I mean, it's hard to imagine that in 6 years after that, we get, Pixar's Toy Story? And I can't even watch that film anymore because I get a massive headache from the way they animated that film. And I've tried to go back to it. It looks rough. Like, it looks very rough. If Pixar could do like a remake of that film but use like the old voiceover, I'd be totally happy with that. No joke. But enough about my rant tangent. But I just wanted to say, it just, anything Studio Ghibli makes is just, it ages so well. Even being 1989 for this film, it's just, man. And
absolutely,
it's another female protagonist, that's just like a central protagonist that's female. I love seeing that. You don't get to see that as often, but a lot of Ghibli movies have that, as the crux of most of their films. So yeah, I don't know. You said a lot of stuff that I was already going to talk about, and I'm glad we had the same ideas. This film is so brilliant, and I kind of want more after dipping back in. I just I know we kind of don't need it, but it would be nice seeing like maybe Kiki's kids or something, I don't know. It would be kind of interesting to see that.
Oh concept. Yeah, that'd be cute.
Even if it's just like a 10-minute short.
Yeah.
Or 30, I don't care. Give me as much as you want. I'm throwing out numbers here. But yeah,
right.
Anything else you want to say about Kiki?
No, I think that about sums it up.
All right, perfect. Well, that was Kiki's Delivery Service. Again, HBO Max. You watched these all on HBO Max, right? I didn't even ask you.
Yeah, I did.
I watched them all as well, so I just wanted to be sure. So, okay, my final pick is The Secret Life of Arrietty, which is also based on another book. The book is called The Borrowers by Mary Norton. Also, fun fact, this isn't the first film adaptation, as they did a live action version of this in 1997 with John Goodman. Not kidding. I had to look it up just to be sure. I was like, wow, really? John Goodman? That aside, our story is about a little girl named Arrietty, who's our main protagonist, who lives with her mother and father beneath the floorboards of a house in the countryside. And I think it's like, maybe, they never really tell you, but it feels Japanish still. I mean, I guess every Ghibli movie kind of looks like it's in Japan, sort of, or at least remnants of it. But they're known as but anyway, I digress with that. Sorry, but they are known as borrowers, which are human in every way except they're like the size of your thumb or a stack of quarters. Essentially, they borrow only what they need to survive while trying to remain hidden from the beans, which is their term they use for normal size humans. I thought that was really funny and cute. It's when Sean, a young bean, moves into the house to spend time with his grandma and spots the borrowers. That's when Arrietty and her family have to start and face a difficult situation, as you're not supposed to be seen by beans. But despite Sean's gentle behavior, his awareness of them threatens their very existence as borrowers alone. Nonetheless, Arrietty forms a friendship with Sean, who eventually gains her trust after revealing to her that he is terminally ill. I think the crux of this film, in my opinion, is the bond between these two. Like, these two can be in more different worlds, though, as you have a boy who's on his way of dying at a young age, and then you have this little tiny girl who's like filled with joy and aspirations to like explore the world. Like, she wants to go get out there, but like her family's sort of tying her down a little bit, saying like, there are rules to being a borrower, The relationship triggers a change in both of them, though, for the better throughout the film. As you see Arrietty and all her optimism, inspire Sean to push forward and seek life past his illness. And while Sean helps her understand, Sean also helps her understand to see the world in a new light, as he teaches her responsibility and perspective in the world around her. As much as their friendship resonates within the film, it ultimately concerns itself. What I think is that the importance of the small things in life and how we view and experience those in that perspective, the small things. The film urges us, the viewers, to look at the world with a fresh perspective, searching for the beauty and the worth in the places that are normally overlooked as ordinary. I think this is just in my head, but as alluring and enlightening as it is gentle and sincere, I think this movie, The Secret World of Arrietty, reminds us all that even the smallest things can possess a grandeur that dwarfs us all. And what did you think about it? Because this is obviously your first time. Did you read the book, or did you ever see the original adaptation?
No, I never read The Borrowers. I never saw the 1997 film with John Goodman. But I watched this and I have to agree. And I think what particularly resonates with me with what you said is the relationship between the two. It is just, it's so sweet. It's so poignant. And especially like you said, that Arrietty inspires Sean to push forward and seek life past his illness. I think that's just something that is so central to so many Ghibli films, where it's just like the wind rises, the wind is rising, we must try to live. Yes, it's tough, it's hard, you didn't choose this, but you can still fly. And it's you know, to see that kind of persistent, consistent message just pervading throughout all the films, it's one of the things that I'm drawn to with Ghibli films. It's one of the things Miyazaki himself talked about, where he one of the quotes I'll mention later, he thinks about, you know, when my coworkers, him saying this, when his coworkers would have babies, he was like, what do I tell them? And he's like, this is why I make the films I make, because I'm trying to figure out, what do you tell kids who come into this world? Because there's a lot that's awful in this world. Children die. You know, there's gun violence. There's all these horrible things. And he's like, my films still have to tell them something that says, yes, but still, we must live. And it's just as true here. And it's so beautifully rendered with these two just inspiring characters, like you said.
I feel like Miyazaki always wants to send a message with all his films, and he does. And it's showing these, like when Marnie was there, I don't want to get into spoilers, but like, yeah, some really tough shit that just Anna goes through, you know. And it's the same with Sean in this film. Like he feels like he's at a brick wall, but when he meets Arrietty, he learns that you can climb over that wall or just topple it down. You know, like you don't have to be stuck. Even though this is a book, there's something with these book adaptations that really just gets to me. They do a really good job of like sending the message they want us to tell through these amazing books. And adapt them into an amazing animation with beautiful art and like you said, amazing messaging of just to fly, you know. So, but those are our picks. Obviously, they're really good ones. There's obviously so many more, but we also have a little bit more to talk about. Obviously, about, you know, the influences that, you know, Studio Ghibli inspired, you know, through animation. You know, you have a lot to say, and a lot of what you said I agree, so I'm gonna let you take it away with this. Okay, so one of the things that I think, and I think you agree as well, that makes Studio Ghibli so influential is that from first to last, its films are all uncompromisingly Japanese, which is something that the studio attempted to defend time and time again against the greedy clutches of corporate media conglomerates. Disney. What I mean by that is that the team never tried to westernize things for foreign audiences to make them more marketable, even when very powerful figures at places like, Disney or Miramax pressured them to do so. On the contrary, when asked by Disney Pixar's John Lasseter what he could do to help Western audiences understand some of the cultural elements depicted in Spirited Away, Miyazaki put it pretty bluntly. To paraphrase, he said that if Western audiences truly want to understand his films, they should learn Japanese. And we already covered this more in depth in the subs versus dubs episode of our podcast, but I think it's important to reiterate here to support the argument that Studio Ghibli didn't worry about whether non-Japanese audiences would get some of the cultural elements of their films, and they certainly didn't try to sanitize those elements either. I mean, Chihiro works in a freaking bathhouse, for crying out loud. But I do think it's also worth mentioning some very crucial context that may have led Miyazaki to make this kind of blunt remark or response to John Lasseter's question. Prior to their relationship with Disney, Ghibli had one film localized for Western audiences in 1986.
New World Pictures dubbed a heavily edited version of Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind called Warriors of the Wind. And to no one's surprise, the film did horribly. Like, literally, they basically took this critically acclaimed film and they were like, well, a female protagonist would never sell, so we're going to put a bunch of like burly, muscular men on the cover of Warriors of Wind, like for the movie poster.
Oh my god, I'm looking at the poster right now. Oh my god.
To draw in like a bunch of like young male audience and stuff like that.
It looks like He-Man.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. I mean, same era. But yeah. So they were like, this will never sell. So we're just going to cut like a huge portion of this out. We're going to do all this horrible mangling to this beautiful film. And as you can probably guess, Ghibli was very displeased with the whole fiasco and became understandably apprehensive about future attempts at localizing its films, to put it mildly. Given this context, Miyazaki's comment to John Lasseter seems very reasonable, and we will include in the video description a source for this, just because a lot of it is like, historical fact, but just to kind of do our due diligence, this article has a lot more in depth about exactly what happened here and kind of how that influences their very strict policy that they get to. And let's just get right into that. I would argue that this example helps set the precedent for how anime studios deal with localization efforts. We've talked the simultaneously hilarious and baffling 4Kids dubs to death, but it's for a good reason. They are just bad, and they insult their audience's intelligence. After being burned by New World Pictures, Studio Ghibli set up some ground rules, which should be pretty notorious at this point, but I'll say it anyway. Studio Ghibli had a strict no-edits policy. What this meant was that studios in charge of localizing the original film couldn't make additions or cuts, as well as anything that could be interpreted as a, quote, substantial change. They could only dub over it. Now, there is compelling evidence to suggest that Disney flagrantly did not honor this policy on several occasions, but perhaps that's a topic for another time. All that aside, Ghibli's getting burned helped pave the way for better standards in localization efforts of anime. And of course, to get a little more gushy, I think the main thing that makes Studio Ghibli films so influential to me is the authenticity. Over and over again, we fall in love with Ghibli films because they are honest and authentic. No matter how outlandish the setting or how fantastical the creatures that inhabit the worlds within the films, every single one attempts to get to the core of what it means to be human. They are at times brutally honest reflections on the unfairness of childhood, how the adults around us speak about us and for us, but seldom to us, prophetic admonitions about nuclear disasters and a rapacious exploitation of the natural world, contemplations on the importance of empathy and compassion. And yes, a significant amount of the films are made for children, but clearly there are some complex adult themes present within all of them. Be that as it may, children are still the focus. Many of the protagonists of these films, even if not literal children, are childlike in nature. But the beauty of it all is that Ghibli films never talk down to the children in the room. Rather, they give them, us, an honest depiction of the toxins of our past, as well as the dying world we inherit from generations that have come before us. Even more remarkable, though, the final word is never gloom and doom. We are left always with the injunction, live. Honestly reflect on the ravages of war and death that mar our human legacy, but bravely embrace the beauty and move forward. And the films don't sugarcoat things, but they do encourage us to reflect without judging and to see the whole of life. And here's a quote that gets at this role that, Miyazaki saw himself fulfilling. Quote, personally, I'm very pessimistic, but when, for instance, one of my staff has a baby, you can't help but bless them for a good future. Because I can't tell that child, oh, you shouldn't have come into this life. And yet I know the world is heading in a bad direction. So when those conflicting thoughts in mind, I think about what kind of films I should be making, end quote. And I think that's where the authenticity comes from. You can't sugarcoat. You can't say, oh, well, you just shouldn't have shown up, kid. But you've got to say something. And he tries to get at what is that thing that you can say, that you should say.
In all the movies, there's always a message for any kid in the scenario that they're in. I mean, it's like you say, he doesn't sugarcoat it. It's amazing. You took most of what I wanted to talk about, especially from the Disney in conflict with Studio Ghibli, and then like, man, seeing that Warriors of Wind poster. Oh, and I have an article here of them saying how much they cut of that film, and they cut about almost 24 minutes of the original Valley of the Wind. I mean, like, holy shit. And I'm glad that they stick with their guns with this. Like, honestly, it's so great that, I mean, they got out of that relationship between those companies, and that they didn't think of it as I mean, obviously it is sour, but like they still continue to give us these amazing Western releases and give us the opportunity to enjoy these films outside of Japan. I'm extremely grateful for the support they even give to just the dub. Like, they put so much work into the dub. For instance, like watching The Wind Rises this week, I had no idea that like John Krasinski's in it, Emily Blunt, Stanley Tucci, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Mandy Patinkin. He's Inigo Montoya from.
No way!
Yeah, and even Elijah Wood. They're all in The Wind Rises. It's probably used as a ploy to get butts into seats for these films, but like, I will say, these actors and actresses, they do not half-ass their roles in here. I feel like I feel like when they get when these people get an opportunity to be in a Studio Ghibli movie, I feel like they understand that. I feel like they really give it their all. They don't half-ass it. They don't do robotic voices, because most of these people have done, obviously, voice work before. But like, it's just nice seeing that they take it seriously and they give it the treatment that it's deserved. And I just have to respect that. Like, and them still trusting us even after the whole, mess with Disney and whatnot. I mean, it just, I'm so happy we still get these films and that they still put in the work for us to enjoy them. Even if you prefer the dub or the sub, they're so influential, not to just movies, but I feel like in video games as well. I don't mean to get into more video games, but like, I see a lot of that, in other movies and animation. I feel like it's just them starting when they started doing animation. It just feels like this is what animation could be. Ghibli movies, they're the heart and soul of how I love anime. And it's expanded my horizons on just getting to know more anime movies in general. Any more thoughts about this entire, obviously, topic? It was a big one to cover, but
Oh my god. Yeah. Well, obviously we have only just scratched the surface here. There are so many amazing Studio Ghibli films to fall in love with, all of them for very good reasons. We picked some of our favorites, some old, some more recent. But we'd love to hear which Ghibli films have a special place in your heart. And do you agree with us? Do you think Studio Ghibli deserves all the hype it gets? Why or why not? As always, email us, comment,
subscribe.
Yeah, that too.
Well, that will have to do it for our topic. But before we go, what are we watching right now?
I'm going to start with Dusk Maiden of Amnesia, just to make you wait. No, I'm starting with that one because I've only watched one episode, and it obviously it's the first one. I am loving it. It is on High Dive. The only thing I don't love, so the premise is that it's like this occult club, and it deals with these three main students, and then a fourth one who is a ghost who has forgotten a lot of like what happened to her in real life, and she is in love with the like main guy in the occult club, but like the thing is, like, the main girl can't see ghosts. She doesn't have a very good sense. So like, he can see her, he can touch her and feel her, and she feels his touch. The ghost does. But the way they structure the first episode, I'm still on the fence whether I like it or not, because they do shot for shot. Like, they do the scene where you can't see the ghost in the room, and then shot for shot, they do the same thing again, and it's like a 10-minute sequence. They do the same thing again, and now you can see the ghost. And like, in principle, I think it's a great idea, but if there's not that much interesting happening in the scene itself, and it's just like, oh, isn't this cool? Like, there was a ghost here the whole time. Like if that's the one thing that's interesting about the scene, I feel like that's not enough to go on to justify 10 minutes of basically just the same thing over again. Like maybe pick a few moments or like highlights where it's like, oh yeah, see the fact the pen was moving or the cup was suspended in midair, but actually it was a ghost. Like, you know, pick a few scenes and
even like show the
way.
perspective, like show their perspective of like what the ghost is thinking, doing and stuff. That'd be kind of cool. I remember I'm sorry, I don't mean to get on another tangent, but I remember a really good anime that I watched with my wife was called My Roommate is a Cat.
Oh yeah.
So good. But like what I loved about that is that you saw the perspective of the owner and what he was going through at the same time as the cat. And then they like do, you know, the next 15 minutes after that, they do the cat's perspective in their own voice and stuff. And I was like, this is great. Like, I love always going back to the cat and seeing what the cat was thinking when the cat was doing stuff with the human and what the cat is thinking, what the human, like, what does the human think? It's such a cool concept. But yeah, I wish they did that with the ghosts in here. It sounds like they didn't, obviously. Like they just had to run out that meter, you know, that 25-minute meter that they needed.
Right. And maybe, you know, past the first episode, they learn, you know, some better things to do. But we'll see. I still like it. It still checks a bunch of my boxes, but yeah, kind of a weird start for the first episode.
Do you usually give it like
I do?
Work? Yeah, I usually do 3 or 5. Where I'm like, if it's a longer series, I'm like, okay, then I'll give it the 5. But like if it's like a 12 episode count, I'm like, okay, don't waste any more my time if you can't, you know, hook me in 3 episodes. But like I'm usually hooked by episode 1.
Yeah.
But anyway, yep. So anything else you want to say about Dusk Maiden of Amnesia?
No, now it's time to move into Fruits Basket. I have been watching.
And this is the remake, right? This is the remake one?
Yes, correct. I am watching this on Crunchyroll.
Yes.
and shocker, I'm watching the dub, which is so unlike me. But oh my god. Yeah, I started this when I was at the height of like my sickness. And like I had a fever and I just put this on and it was a warm bowl of soup. It is just, it is beautiful. I cried so much just watching this. I like just the attitude of Toru just throughout all of her struggles. And she just sees the best in people, even with all of this shit that just keeps getting piled on top of her, living in a tent, like all this, her mom's dead. Like, you know, all this other stuff. And it's just like, how can she keep like just, and then her surviving, and the grandpa's great. The grandpa's fucking great.
I hate the rest of her family. Yeah. They could go fuck off and die.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the grandpa's just like, I have to apologize for my family. And they're like, what?
They're utter assholes. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. No, it is just so beautiful, stunning animation, by the way, but just the story, the characterization. There are just so many lines where I'm like, okay, I'm done crying, and then it's like, god damn it, you got me crying again.
Yeah, that is one show that you need a box of tissues for. Even you're only in season 1, right?
Yeah.
There's 3 seasons and a movie. Again, I implore you to watch the movie afterward. You have to watch it after, though. You can't, otherwise you'll be spoiled, of course.
Absolutely.
But man, I'm so glad you're enjoying it. Was it because of my Mother's Day suggestion?
Yes.
and do you love her mom?
Oh my god, yeah.
I'm so glad I'm so glad you're enjoying it. I wish we could just talk about Fruits Basket all day. Anything else you're watching before I get into mine?
No, those are the 2 main ones.
I think you're excited about mine, aren't you?
Oh, yes.
Sailor Moon Crystal. This is the remake as well of Sailor Moon, and we're watching it dubbed on Hulu. It's all on Hulu, all 3 seasons, and I'm enjoying it. I've watched a couple of Sailor Moons in, you know, growing up, but I never watched it all that much. It was always Yu-Gi-Oh! It was always a little bit of Dragon Ball here and there. You know, the 4Kids stuff, you know, because that's how I grew up with that stuff. And I don't know if there was any other way to watch Sailor Moon back in the day. Do you remember?
No, yeah.
But they made a dub. there's a dub of the original Sailor Moon. So, but yeah, I'm really enjoying it. It's really interesting. It's nice. It definitely feels 90s still, even it being remade in 2014, 2015, this remake. But like, I don't know. I'm enjoying it. I feel like I have to think another anime for me to put up with the show a little bit, not in a bad way, but like their shenanigans, like the plot of Sailor Moon Crystal or just Sailor Moon in general. I have to thank JoJo because of how ridiculous JoJo is in its, in its story. I feel like I can tolerate Sailor Moon. Like if I can tolerate JoJo, I can tolerate Sailor Moon. I don't know. It feels like that's the test, but I'm enjoying it. I love the characters. Jupiter's always been my favorite whenever I saw her in the OG. I don't know do you have a favorite?
Oh, that is, it's definitely Saturn.
Oh, you like Saturn? Okay.
Oh, I do.
Good choice.
Just gonna leave it at that.
Just finished season 1, and it went places. It went places with the moon and other things, and they introduced some crazy stuff. But it's just magical girl stuff, and I was like, wow. Their anime, like I was a little worried when they were going to do their transformations every time in every episode, because they do. And the more they introduced more sailors, the more longer it got because they did everyone. I'm like, man, they're really just filling out the clock here. Like it takes 5 minutes for all these girls to transform before they even get into the action. It's kind of like when Dragon Ball Z tries to level up for 8 episodes and then they can.
Oh my god!
But like. I was a little worried that they would, because it's 3D when they're doing their transformation into their sailor uniforms. And you know what? It's not bad. I thought it was going to be a lot worse. I was a little worried that they would phone in the 3D, but it's actually pretty good and it looks great. So they didn't half-ass this remake. So I'm enjoying it. So I don't know what else I can say about Sailor Moon. I might say more about it because we're still going through 2 more seasons, and then my wife wants to do Sailor Moon the OG.
Oh, nice.
She told me that they even went back and redid the dub with these actors that did Crystal. I didn't do any factual check on that, so that's what she told me. So I'll just take it to what she told me. But I'll once we get to Sailor Moon, I'll come back. But we'll see. But we're gonna stop after 3 seasons. Then I'll be like, maybe I'm a little tired out of Sailor Moon. Maybe we can come back later.
Yeah,
there's only so much I can handle of Sailor Moon. Not in a bad way. It's just that it's just a niche. I don't know if that makes any sense. I like magical girls. Don't get me wrong. It's just after watching so many good ones over the years, like Madoka Magica, like it's hard to top any of the recent ones. Not that I'm saying Sailor Moon's bad. It's just that like you can tell things got improved over the years.
Yeah, definitely.
And things feel, like I said, it feels very 90s still for it being a remake, which is fine. It's just that's the aesthetic. That's what it was back in the what was it, 92 or 3 when we got the dub, or not the dub, the original Sailor Moon. It was early 90s, and I feel like they stuck true to that. So anyway, that's Sailor Moon Crystal. You guys can watch it on Hulu. I might have more things to say about it later, but let's get the flip out of here.
Yeah.
Where can people find you when we aren't talking about anime?
So I do have a YouTube channel called Raven Rook. I play a lot of horror games, indie horror, more big budget titles. I'm also currently going through the Dot Hack IMOQ series, which is a JRPG, not horror, although it can get pretty scary at times. But yeah, and then I do reviews of the games that I play. So there's always that. But where can we find you? Yeah, YouTube, same way. Grumble Gamers. The charity stream is in a couple of days. I'm really excited about doing it. Like it kind of brings a tear to my eye that I get to finally do this after 4 years. It kind of feels like a step in the right direction for me. Not that I don't know if I'll do streaming like completely anymore, because I know you've dived out of streaming and just stuck with videos and stuff. I like editing. I like doing videos, and it feels like I have control
And streaming doesn't feel like I'm in control. I just have to go with what's happening in front of me, which is fine, but it just to a good cause, like I get to do a Pug Rescue Foundation, and it's just I feel honored to be finally being able to do this, and especially with other content creators that are interested in doing this with me. So it's been something I've been in the past couple weeks. Since the last episode we recorded, just getting this all ready. So it just feels like, it feels great. It feels like I can check this off my bucket list. And I'm just really excited about that. And of course, we're wrapping up Dead Space right now. We're actually, probably at the time of this recording, it's already done. And we're moving on to our next remake, which is actually, we're going to do Resident Evil 4. So we're going to be playing Resident Evil 4 remake. So that'll be fun. And then I'm currently going through Mortuary's Assistant with me, my wife, and her mom, because she loved playing games with us, and she loved The Last of Us, and she was like, "Can we go back to?" Because she did the Mortuary's Assistant episode with us in October, and she really enjoyed that. I was trying to get her feet wet a little bit before we dived her in. No, it's dove, right? It's dove.
Yeah.
Before we dove her into like The Last of Us, because that was going to be a thing and a journey. And I just wanted to get her feet wet a little bit and see how it would work. And she really enjoyed that Mortuary's Assistant one. And I was like, well, let's finish it up. There's only 4 more endings. So when we got one, so why not do 4 more episodes? So we're doing that. And then we're moving on to one of her mom's favorite games of all time, which is a point-and-click adventure game, which I find really interesting. It's called Riven. I don't know if you heard about that one.
I've heard of it, but I've never played it.
It's the sequel to Myst.
Apparently. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so apparently her mom was very into it when she was young, and she even has like the old strategy guide book for it.
Wow.
She still has it. So I'm like, well, we're going to use it, right? Like we're going to bring it in, just dust it off the old shelf. So it's going to be something she's always wanted. And she's like, she got really excited. She's like, wait, we could play Riven. I'm like, yeah, why not? So I got it working. It works. We can try it out and see how it goes. So it'll be something new for me, because I've never done a point and click game before. I mean, I've done visual novels. That's the only thing I could think of on the top of my head that's close to that in my own mind frame. But yeah, I'm really excited to do that. So yeah. And then of course, I'm always playing horror games, AAA titles. I'm playing with you right now, A Way Out. You forgot to mention that. Oh,
yes. We are doing that together. That's a lot of fun.
I've been enjoying it, man. I'm trying to think of like, what's our next one now? I don't know. I'm always thinking like weeks ahead. I'm like, what's our next one after A Way Out? I am enjoying A Way Out again, just seeing you enjoying it for the first time, even though I know it's just been so fun playing it with you. But that's where you can find me. Check us out on the Animan Pod on Twitter. Check us out over on Spotify, Google Podcast. I promise I'm going to get the Apple thing fixed. I think I've just been so busy, as you've seen already and heard. And I will be working on that probably this week while you're away in Ireland. That would be fun, right? You excited?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Very excited.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear your journey through Dublin. And where else are you going?
Galway.
All right. You'll have to let me know. And how the jet lag is for you. You'll have to let me know.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
Let's get the heck out of here. What's our next topic when you come back?
It's very germane to some of our picks for what we've been watching. We're going to be talking about anime remakes. So Fruits Basket, Trigun, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, Sailor Moon Crystal, you name it, we're going to talk about it.
And we'll see you guys in the next one. As always, I'm Crazed.
And I'm Ravenrook.
Weebs out.
Weebs out!